welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 318, and today's date is March 19th, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Fed Will Continue with the Economic Recovery Illusion. And we all understand the Fed was out there giving us what they think of the economy and how they're going to taper. And, they're telling us that the economy is recovering and they'll taper. But we're going to do a couple of things here because the unemployment rate's coming down too fast. And if we start to raise interest rates, we'll pretty much implode the entire country and the economy will completely collapse. So we can't have that happen just yet because you would blame us for that. I mean, you would blame the Fed, the U.S. government, and we can't let that happen. So we're going to look at other things besides the unemployment rate now. We're going to change what we're doing so we can keep the interest rates low until we can get that special event going and the war going, so all eyes are off the Fed and the U.S. government, and they are put onto a different country. But we'll get into that a little bit later in this report. Let's get started with the economic collapse news. We are going to head out to Greece, and again, Greece, as we remember all from the corporate media, when they first got their bailout money, they told us the Greek problem was completely solved. Everything is fine. Please look away. But ever since then, it has just gotten worse and worse. And now Greece has finally struck a deal with its international creditor on the next and final tranche of the Southern Europe countries' bailout package. Because we have to remember, they have no revenue coming in. They have no money whatsoever. They need this loan money. Without it, the country cannot stay afloat. And the three international lenders agreed to grant Athens emergency loans worth 10.1 billion euros. And according to the reports, more than a quarter of Greek workers are currently unemployed. Banks are in shaky position, and pensions and salaries have been slashed by about 40% during this crisis. So there is absolutely no way that this is going to make any difference. What they're doing is they're putting a Band-Aid on the situation. More money's coming in. That money will be used up in no time. There is no other revenue come in. You'll see more unemployment. It will continually the unemployment rate will continually will skyrocket because there is nothing driving the country at this time. Now they have 3 bailout loans they have to deal with, and they cannot pay any of these, and this is the big problem. Now remember back during the holiday season when UPS said, "Oh, you know what? We missed our our expectations of what we were going to bring in," and it was because of an unprecedented level of online shopping that included a surge of last-minute orders. And this is why we didn't really stick to our profits that we were receiving, and they were a little bit lower than we expected because we just couldn't keep up with it. And of course now FedEx is out there, and their fourth quarter revenues are a complete miss. And again, they're blaming this on the weather. So we have UPS saying that they had too many orders, which completely doesn't make any sense whatsoever, that they couldn't keep up with demand, and that's why their fourth quarter profit revenues were down. And then we had FedEx coming out saying that their fourth quarter earnings were down because of the weather. So which is it? Is it the weather, or there was just too many people buying at that time? Well, I'm going to tell you what it really is. Their stories make no sense whatsoever, and because the reason why they don't is because people just don't have the money to purchase. I don't care if it's online, in a brick and mortar shop, they just don't have the money, and this is why the revenue is down. And they can pretend it's the weather, they can pretend it's because the demand is too high and they couldn't keep up. It is absolutely ridiculous what they're talking about now. Now, on the X22Report.com site, I keep track of inflation and deflation, and I keep track of a couple of products, so, prices going up, prices going down. But we're finding out some more tricks that these manufacturers are doing to keep the prices pretty much steady right now. And again, in many packaged products, we see that 50% of the contents is just empty space. And an investigation by Consumer Report reveals, yes, they are actually giving us less product in those bags. What else are they doing here? Well, the large food companies have recently announced that they will raise the prices they charge grocery retailers for commodities-based products. For example, a chocolate bar will cost more soon. Hershey last week announced a 10% increase for more of its confectionery goods. And one of the biggest things that they're doing right now to hide the higher cost of all these products is they are pretty much swapping out the higher quality ingredients in products and bringing in lower quality, cheaper ingredients into the products. And we're seeing this with many of the baked goods and manufactured goods. We're also seeing it with coffee. And what they're doing is they're substituting the Arabica beans with lower grade Robusta beans, and they're keeping the price the same, because what's happening, the prices are going up, and each one of these companies are trying to keep, probably from a mandate from the government, to say, listen, don't show prices going up, so do whatever you got to do. Shrink the products, trade out ingredients, I don't care, but we have to do it so people don't realize that these prices are going up. But of course, on the fresh products, not the manufactured products, I'm talking about just like meat. I mean, of course, they could substitute meat like milk and those things, apples, bananas. We see prices going up. I mean, it's very difficult to cover those up right now. But other products where they blend and they manufacture, they process, they definitely can substitute many of the ingredients. And we're seeing this happen right now. And this is why these products, the prices are pretty much staying the same. But some of them are shrinking. Some of them don't taste as good. And we're seeing this happen a lot right now. Now, we understand that the real estate market is in pretty much a death spiral. I know most of the people are saying, well, I don't really see it in my neighborhood, but then again, we have to remember it doesn't hit every neighborhood at the same time. It doesn't hit every city at the same time. It is a cascading effect, and it will soon hit every single part. But right now, applications for U.S. home mortgages fell last week as both purchase and refinancing applications slipped. They fell around 1.2% in the week ended March 14th, and refinancing applications fell 1.3%. And this is a continued trend. And right now, the gauge of loan requests for home purchases, this is a leading indicator of home sales, dipped again by 0.9%. This home real estate environment is in a huge decline. It is imploding on itself, and those insiders are trying to get out right now because we are hitting the top of the bubble. We're hitting high prices where they're trying everything to get people into the real estate market with 100% financing. They're going to the subprime borrowers. They're giving away ARMs. ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, not arms on your body, ARMs, and they're trying everything they possibly can to get those people in, and guess what? They are non-existent. And the insiders already know that this system is going to come crumbling down. Now, I understand the Fed is out there and they're trying to convince us that we're in this recovery and everything is fine, but right now the poverty and hunger rates in the United States have reached historic levels. Poverty in the United States, as measured by just about every objective indicator, is at the highest level, its broadest and deepest level, not just since the Great Depression, but probably since the 19th century. And this is coming from Don DeBeer. There are something like 25% of the population of New York City that rely on food stamps or other aid just to eat, and we're seeing this across many of the cities. Job creation has stopped in essence and has been in the negative side for at least 6 years now. And listen, we can see it. We have evidence of this, actually, because if we go back to 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, as we saw the unemployment continually slide down, we should have seen retail expanding, homes purchasing expanding, but not by hedge funds and investors, by real people. We would see more people having money. We would see financial institutions expanding, the mortgage departments expanding, but we see the actual opposite. As the unemployment rate, this illusion of the unemployment rate continually go down, we saw the opposite happen. We saw retail stores closing. We see mortgage departments laying off people. We see businesses going out of business. This is how we know that this job creation is completely fake. And right now, this goes on to say that 1 in 5 New Yorkers, an astounding 1.4 million of the total population of 8.3 million in New York, rely on food banks and pantries to sustain themselves every single day. And this is not good. And let me just say, the face of low-wage workers in America is completely changing. Back when I was working at a supermarket, and I was going to high school and then to college, I mean, I remember all the low-paying jobs were all held by teenagers just trying to earn extra money, and this has completely changed. More than half of those who make $9 or less an hour are 25 years or older. Today, low-wage workers are also more educated, with 41% having at least some college, up from 29% in 2000. If you look back several decades, workers near the minimum wage were more likely to be teenagers, like I said, and that's the stereotype people have, but it's completely changing. We're seeing older people in these jobs because, again, those people coming out of college cannot find work, so they end up taking these part-time jobs while they're still looking for that job that's in their college major. And again, they are just not out there because, as we know, many corporations like Dell, Sony, Barclays, RBS, they're all laying off thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, and they just can't find those jobs, and it's very difficult for these people to make ends meet. Now, we understand that JP Morgan is selling their physical commodity business, and they're trying to get out of the physical commodities, and it looks like they're going ahead with this, and this is with a company called Mercuria, and they're not releasing any of the details of the sale at this time. Now, I remember when President Obama was talking about the deficit of the United States, and he was out there saying that, you know, it's only $680 billion in 2013, and the GAO's more accurate accounting shows that really the total government cost is about $3.8 trillion on a total revenue of $2.8 trillion. So the administration wasn't exactly honest with the American people when he told us that the deficit was $680 billion, because if we really look at this and we subtract this, it's really around $1 trillion, not $680 billion. But it's actually worse than this. The GAO added up all the U.S. government assets in 2013, and that included like aircraft carriers, the highway system, land, cash, and financial assets, and that totaled around $2.97 trillion. The liabilities, on the other hand, total around $19.88 trillion. This includes the official public debt, plus all sorts of IOUs and loan guarantees. This means the net equity of the U.S. government is minus $16.9 trillion. Moreover, the U.S. government's cash position is a mere $206 billion, roughly 1.1% of its public debt. This isn't enough to cover net interest payments for the next year. Now you understand why they need to continually borrow money from the Fed. And this is why the Fed and the government cannot have the interest rates go up. Because if the interest rates approach, let's say 3%, boom, the entire economy comes crashing down. It could not be sustained. And this is why the Fed is still out there saying that, you know, we're going to keep these rates low. And again, the Fed was out there telling us that, you know, it sees sufficient underlying strength in the economy. It also says it will likely reduce QE further measured steps. But again, we have to remember what they're actually doing. Yes, they're tapering here in the United States. They're showing everyone that we're in a recovery. Unemployment is great. It's low, and inflation is not really moving because all the products are being changed, and they don't count food or fuel. So it looks fantastic. So the unemployment rate is coming down, and we understand that they're tapering, but they're shifting their tapering over to Belgium. They're handling the Treasury bond purchases, which I reported on yesterday, and they're doing this through back channels, so nobody really notices. But again, the unemployment is coming down too fast, and the economy is really not doing what it's supposed to be doing because it's a complete illusion. So now they're switching gears right now. Now they're going to be looking at different things. They're going to be looking at inflation. They're going to look at GDP growth. And this is all the things they're going to look at. And they're going to keep those rates very low at this time. And of course, the Fed is telling us that they see GDP growth of 2.8 to 3.0. And they see it, the economy is just growing beautifully. But we have to remember all this information, all these calculations, they completely manipulate and change them to create the illusion that the economy is doing better. And of course, they need to keep up the illusion because they do not want to be blamed for what is going to happen. And they understand the collapse is happening, but they need to keep the illusion going until they can get this event started. Now, while they're telling us that, everything looks great, we're in a recovery, the unemployment's coming down, we're seeing fantastic growth, we see major corporations laying off thousands upon thousands of people. Just from the beginning of this year, we've had retail store closing, retail layoffs, financial institutions laying off, manufacturers like Dell, Sony, all laying off thousands upon thousands of people. And now Deutsche Bank, yes, here is another bank coming up saying they are going to plan on laying off. They're planning on laying off people. They don't know how many yet, but I can just imagine it's probably going to be in the 10 to 15,000 range or higher, just like all the other banks. And we're seeing this continually happen. This is a trend now because we understand that all of these banks, according to the Goldman Sachs report that came out, that most of these banks will have double-digit losses in their fixed income side of the bank, and they are doing terribly, so they need to let all these people go. And again, where are all these high-paid people going to go to find work? There are no jobs out there. And there are more layoffs coming in Sprint. They're laying off 400 people. And Sony Pictures Entertainment in California is laying off 216 people. So we can see that this is not going the way they are telling us. It's going in the opposite direction. But this is what they do. They always tell us the opposite. If they tell us we're in a recovery and they try to convince us that we're in a recovery, we know we are not. We are doomed. We are in an economic collapse. They did this in 2008. They told us everything's contained. We don't predict a recession in 2008, and we had a recession in 2008 going forward. The subprime completely wiped out all real estate, wiped out 38% of the wealth of the people of the United States. So pretty much what they say is not true whatsoever. And as soon as the president went out there in August of 2013 and told us we're in a recovery in real estate, Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citibank, all started laying off thousands of people in their mortgage department because they know real estate is imploding and people are not taking out mortgages. And this is why they don't need the people in these positions. Let's move into Obamacare right now. And Obamacare, as everyone knows, is not for the health of the people. It is a cash grab. They want your tax money. They need to give this money to the insurance insurance companies, and they also need this money because there's intertwined taxes in Obamacare for the revenue of the country. And now they're so desperate that they are doing their final push to encourage Hispanics to enroll in Obamacare before March 31st deadline. President Barack Obama has said that immigration officials will not obtain information from the health care program that could lead to deportations. And he went on to say, if you have a family where some people are citizens or legally here and others are not documented, the immigration people will never get that information, he added. We just want you to sign up so we can pump our numbers up. So please, if you're illegal here, it doesn't matter. Sign up to Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, because we want you to be counted, because we can't find anyone that will join. And the number that we're giving out is not really true because these people aren't actually paying. So we need more people to join this system. So we're going to give it to all those people who are here illegally, and we promise we're not going to go after you because you're helping us out here. Now, again, Obamacare was supposed to be inexpensive. It was supposed to help the American people. And again, we're seeing the total opposite. And right now, Obamacare is not cheap whatsoever. And people who have been joining, they're seeing their premiums double. And guess what? The health industry officials say Obamacare-related premiums are now going to double in some parts of the country. So if you joined up to Obamacare and you were used to be paying like $250 for your health insurance, and then when you joined Obamacare it's $350, well, you might see that premium go up again. And again, you're going to get less coverage, but you're going to pay more money, because this is to pump up the insurance companies, and it is to get as much as they possibly can out of the American people without giving them anything back, because they need this revenue to keep the government operating. And this goes on to say they expect the rate hikes will be announced in the coming months. The increases are far less significant, and this is the excuse they're using. The increases are far less significant than what they were prior to the Affordable Care Act. So they're trying to tell us that before the Affordable Care Act, the rates would have increased, but they would have been a lot worse. Well, I'm not really seeing that, and the people that I've been speaking to say that their health insurance has already gone up just by joining up with the Affordable Care Act, and now they're going to see it rise even further. If I kept my other insurance, if it did rise, it would be coming from a lower point. So what they're saying again is completely the opposite. And what's even funnier is that Consumer Reports, they're out there, and also we have to remember the medical community is also out there saying, don't join up for Obamacare. And according to Consumer Reports, the government's healthcare.gov website, which is the primary entry point for millions of people needing to sign up for healthcare plans, is a mess, citing numerous issues including login problems, non-function activation emails, and a near 97% failure rate for account creation. The consumer watchdog has warned that people should stay away from the site completely and do not join up at this time. So we can see what is happening here. Everyone is sitting here looking at this and saying, wow, this is completely a mess. They spent $630 million or so on the website. It doesn't even work. Obamacare is not doing what they promised it would do, and this whole thing is starting to look like all they want is the people's money, and that is exactly what they want. Now, we have to go and look at what the president continually says about spying now. Remember when he told us, and Dianne Feinstein was out there telling us, and they're all telling us, no, we're not spying on anyone. And then that turned out to be a lie, and I believe that was Alexander who was out there saying we're not spying on American people, and it came out that he was lying. The president said he's going to tailor back the NSA, and Dianne Feinstein said we're only collecting metadata. Well, it turns out everyone's lying. They are collecting 100% of the nation's calls. And again, we knew they were doing this because they told us, and I'm talking about Dianne Feinstein and the president, they told us we're only collecting the phone number and the town you were calling from. And in my past reports, I've said this many times, well, why do they need that? They can just get that from the phone company. Why do they have to build a multi-billion-dollar center for the same information they can get from the phone companies? Why? Because they're keeping all the calls. It's not just metadata. It is completely all of it. But of course, Obama, his January 17th pledge, he said this, that the United States is not spying on ordinary people who don't threaten our national security. We take their privacy concerns into account. My question to him is, first of all, if you're not spying on everybody, how do you know which people are a threat to national security? Wouldn't you have to spy on those people to figure out if they are a threat to national security? So from his statement, what he's saying is, yes, we are spying on everyone because we need to find out who is a threat to our national security. And what does that mean? It means who is a threat to us, the government, because we are afraid of the American people, because we are afraid that they'll wake up and take our power away. That is what he's saying, because it's impossible to know who is or isn't a threat unless you're spying on everyone. Now, in California, as of February 13th, the Ninth U.S. District Court of Appeals ruled by a 2-to-1 margin that restrictions on carrying handguns was a violation of the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So finally, someone is out there and recognizing the Second Amendment. And again, these people in California, they were rushing to buy gun permits because of this law that was overturned. And again, we don't need the courts or the Supreme Court or any of these people to tell us what are our rights and what aren't our rights, because we the people decide. We already have the law of the land. It's called the Constitution. It's already laid out that these laws, the Second Amendment, of course, cannot be infringed upon, which means it cannot be limited. And again, any law that is put on the books is limiting the Second Amendment. The Founding Fathers were very smart in the way they worded this. And again, those judges that are voting the other way are those who are being blackmailed by the NSA, because it makes no sense if you really read what the Founding Fathers said and what they put down on paper. Now, we understand that the FBI, and every time that they're around some type of terrorist type of plot, it seems like they're the ones who are creating it. And someone who has a blog at thedailyslave.com figured out that there is some type of pattern. It's a 6-week pattern where the FBI goes in and foils a plot or is there and ready to catch these type of terrorist acts going on. And he went on, and it looks like on we'll start back here, on September 16th of 2013, when we had the Washington Navy Yard shooting. 6 weeks later, we had in November 1st, was the Los Angeles airport shooting hoax. 6 weeks later, it was on December 13th, 2013, it was the Wichita air bomb threat hoax. 6 weeks later, on January 26th, it was the Columbia, Maryland Mall shooting hoax. And then 6 weeks later, on March 17th, 2014, they found this 20-year-old or so who was a National Guard who was planning some terrorist acts by reading Al-Qaeda magazines. And again, it seems to fit a 6-week pattern. And the next 6 weeks brings us into May, and we will have to see what that false flag event or hoax will be for the FBI to show that they are there, they are ready, and they are stopping or trying to prevent these things from occurring. Okay, now we understand that the U.S. and the EU have imposed sanctions, and it's more like a wrist slap, a little slap in the face, the type of sanctions that they're imposing right now. But Australia is also sanctioning 12 Russians and Ukrainians, and again, the British House of Commons also supports additional sanctions against Russia. Opposition leader Ed Miliband told Prime Minister Cameron that he would have the full support of the House of Commons to enact for the toughest possible diplomatic and economic measures against the Russian Federation, given the totally illegitimate actions they have taken. So we can see what is happening right now. All the private Western central bank countries are jumping on the bandwagon, making it seem like they are doing something and they're imposing these sanctions. But most of the Russian oligarchy already removed their wealth. They already switched and moved everything because they understood that these sanctions were coming. And again, this really didn't do anything. They didn't even sanction Putin. They did it to Putin's all his friends and all his people that surround him. And again, Russia was out there saying to the President of the United States, listen, if you're going to sanction just us, sanction all of us. See if we care. Go ahead. Do it. Sanction everybody so we're all in it together. And they were kind of like, shoving it in his face that, just don't sanction a couple of us, sanction all of us. Come on, bring it on. Now, we understand Ukraine is in debt up to their eyeballs. They have no industry. It's completely falling apart. But don't worry, Europe offers a further 1 billion euros in financial aid to Ukraine. The European Commission has proposed another 1 billion euro for Kiev, which will come as part of the 11 billion euro package agreed earlier in March. Conditions for the new installment will be agreed in the coming weeks with the IMF. And again, this is what they wanted. They wanted to get into Ukraine so they can spread the debt, issue more loans to prop up the system. They also wanted to capture Ukraine because it is a strategic location. It borders on the Black Sea. They wanted it to join NATO, and now all these plans are falling apart because Crimea is now part of Russia, and we can see the central bankers, U.S. government, EU are left with the western section of Ukraine, and this is not really what they wanted. They wanted the production, they wanted the wealth, they wanted that area where Russia keeps its ships in the ports along the Black Sea, and they couldn't get it. So now they're trying to do everything and anything possible to push their agenda forward, but there's really not much left for them. The only thing that is left is actually to start some type of war, and this is what they're trying to do. Now, Russia is out there and they're saying, listen, if you impose sanctions on us, we'll just go to other places and we will conduct trade with other countries. And President Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, has recently said that Moscow would shift its attention to other partners in other parts of the world in case of Western sanctions. And who are these other people? Well, of course, it's going to be China, it's going to be North Korea, it's going to be India, it's going to be Iran, it's going to be Syria, it's going to be Egypt, it's going to be everyone but Europe and the United States. And again, we have to remember, Russia right now has a strong manufacturing base. It is a strong economically. It also provides a lot of natural gas and oil to Europe. And again, this is why they did the slap in the face sanctions, and because they don't want this to stop. They want this to continue, and this is why they didn't sanction Russia completely at this time. But this doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but they haven't done it because they realize that if they do this, it will really hurt the fragile economies of the world, because we have to look around. Europe right now has, most of the countries are in so much debt. Their unemployment is between 20 and 30% or higher. The youth unemployment is between 40 and 60%, and every single country in Europe is struggling right now. Some of them are okay, but most of them are struggling. The U.S. economy is completely struggling. It is so fragile right now that one little black swan or one little event could kick the entire domino line and set it down a course that we could not stop. And they realize this, and this is why they're not pursuing it right now. They're trying to figure out what else they can do, because really what they want is war to cover up what is coming. Now, the Gaza Strip also wants to join Russia at this time. According to online reports, the Treaty of Crimea being accepted into Russia has prompted the setting up of an initiative group that will draw up a proposal for the Palestine enclave in Israel to hold a referendum on joining the Russian Federation too. So we have Moldova wanting to join. We have Gaza, the Gaza Strip, that wants to join Russia, and we have other places in the world like Catalonia who wants to separate from Spain. But again, no one's making a big deal about all these other places. They're only making a big deal in Ukraine. But we're seeing this happen all over the place where other parts of the countries want to split off now because they see economically it is not helping them. Now, we understand that there are military drills going on all over Europe, along Poland, in Lithuania, in the Black Sea, along Russia. They're all flexing their muscles, and right now the U.S. warship Truxtun begins naval exercises in the Black Sea, and they started their one-day military exercise. Of course, this was all scheduled in advance. They already knew they were going to bring the ship in there into the Black Sea, and they were going to do this. Russia's doing the same thing. They are just getting ready and making sure that all troops and everyone is ready. And again, the central bankers will be pushing for war. If you notice, Ukraine Prime Minister is very aggressive. All the news that is coming out of Ukraine really comes from him. Now, he was put in there, the Prime Minister was put in there by the central bankers, U.S. government, the EU, and again, there was no election, because if there was an election, these people would not be in power, and they don't want them to lose power because they are the puppet government. They are the mouthpiece. They are doing what the central bankers want. They are pushing for war. And this is why you see the aggressive nature. This is why you see the unknown snipers with unmarked uniforms striking again, saying, oh, it's the Russian people, it's the Russian army, we have troops everywhere. But Russia is out there, and they're saying, listen, if you want to see, and you can come and take a look, with the Open Sky Treaty, you can fly over our country and see where our troops are positioned. And they're also letting Ukrainian inspectors into Russia, and they're allowing them to drive through Russia to show them that there is no troop buildup. A Ukrainian national team of inspectors is to monitor a suspected buildup of troops in the west of Russia. The 4-member Ukrainian team will be traveling by car across an area of about 13 square kilometers in Belgorod and Kursk regions along Russian-Ukrainian border to ensure that Russia is not performing any undeclared deployment of troops there whatsoever. Now again, why would they do this if they're getting ready to invade? If Putin really wanted to invade and just take over Ukraine, he would have done it. Actually, if we go back to Syria, if he really wanted World War III and he wanted to go ahead with this, he would have let United States go into Syria. This would have been perfect. United States is there waging war in Syria. Syria has a pact with Russia. Russia would just step in and say, okay, we're at war now. But this is not how he plays this. He has people in the Ukraine come to him. Cities, provinces, military leaders, military commanders all come to him without force whatsoever, without troops coming in and pushing people to come over. Yes, right now, the the Crimea defense team, the pro-Russian people are trying to remove Ukrainian soldiers out of Crimea. They're telling them, if you want to be with Ukraine, go back to Ukraine. We are allowing you to do this right now. Now, we see that Netanyahu is preparing for a possible military strike against Iran in 2014. They are preparing, they are getting ready, and again, we've seen this many times over the 30 years with all the different Israeli leaders, with the U.S. government, and again, if they go in there, this would start off war. Do I think they're going to do this? I don't, because it would show that Israel provoked something. This is not how they worked. They work by having the other country, they make it seem like the other country attacked them. So for them to come out and actually say they're going in there, no way. They're going to make it, if they're going to start something, they're going to make it look like the other country is attacking them, and they're going to say, hey, look what they just did. Because we have to remember, Israel already flew into Syria and bombed bases in Syria, blew up missile depots. I mean, they flew into a sovereign country and laid down bombs to blow up bases. Think about it in your country, wherever you are. If you saw military jet fighters flying over, hitting different areas of your country, the country would respond with war. But again, Syria did not. They held back. And we can see that this could be very well all propaganda because of what's happening with the P5+1 deal. Again, the central bankers are trying to infiltrate the banks of Iran because their goal is exactly the same. The tactic they're using might be different, but their goal is always the same. Now, we understand that the United States has kicked out all the diplomats that are here in the United States from Syria. They're closing the embassies, and we understand why they're doing this. This is the next step for the false flag event. And what's happening is that Russia is out there, and they are saying they are very worried about what is happening at this time, and they're disappointed because they realize what's happening. They know what the central bankers are capable of. Putin kicked out the central bankers in Russia. He took over the central banker. It's still privately owned, but he controls it. This is why he paid off the debt, and he controls the entire thing. He understands how central bankers work. He understands their motives. He understands what they're trying to do. And right now, they're out there saying, oh, they're very worried and disappointed because they understand the U.S. government doing this, kicking out and closing the embassies. They understand the next step is for something to happen. And again, we see this happening quite a lot. Now, Condoleezza Rice is out there, and she's the former Secretary of State, and she's saying that the United States will pay a price in the long run if it abandons its role as a world leader to focus more on domestic issues. So if we decide to focus on our domestic issues, we're going to lose our role around the world. So she's telling us to give up everything here inside the country. Don't worry about receiving money. Who cares about Detroit? Those people are starving. Just let them starve. And she went on to say the United States cannot step back, lower its voice, and let others lead, Rice said. I know we are tired and worried about our problems at home, but we cannot eschew the responsibilities of leadership and embolden those who do not share our values, Rice said. The world is a pretty scary place when led by those who believe in different ideals. Well, listen, if you would like to go to war, and I say this to any leader here, and I'll bring this back to Obamacare, because as we can see, Obamacare, if we had true leaders, they would have sat down in front of the computers and they would have joined up to Obamacare to show us that this is great insurance for the American people. If we have true leaders and those people who are calling for war, who are telling us to give up our domestic issues, to go out to these other countries, to fight for democracy, this has nothing to do with, these people should be leading us. They should be on the front lines. Obama wants to go to war. His kids out front, him leading the way. McCain, send your daughter out there and your wife and you, front lines. You lead us just like we did in the olden days. The leaders would ride in front into battle. This is what we need these people to do, because if they believe in these wars so much in democracy, and this is what we're fighting for, they should be out there. They shouldn't be in their offices watching things on screens while they collect more money. And it's ridiculous what she's out there saying. But let's continue here. The federal insurance to cover terrorist attacks is ready to expire. Warning of serious consequences for national security. A terrorist attack in the United States could become even more costly to the U.S. economy and national security, as federal insurance is due to expire this year. Study finds that if the act expires and the take-up rate for terrorism insurance falls, then our country will be less resilient to future terrorist attacks. Allowing the federal terrorist risk insurance act to expire could have negative consequences for U.S. national security and on the economy. I hear this economy thing a lot. With the insurance program due to expire this year, Congress is said to be looking at what the government's role is in terrorism insurance markets. However, There are active terrorist groups who do aspire to conduct more complex attacks on U.S. targets, and the possibility remains that sometime in the future, one of these groups may succeed. Again, we know they're going to succeed. We understand what is happening. We understand there will be a false flag event to cover up this entire economic collapse. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.